amount of work that has been done in order to verify and make sure this is safe to fly. Talk a little bit about how hard the team was working.
All the teams. You remember we started off with working with the ULA, with the valve replacement. So that started our process from the time we scrubbed in early May. So from there, we've moved into the working with the spacecraft and the helium anomaly. The teams have been working night and day to resolve that, to make sure that we've stepped through every procedure, every process, and making sure that we're okay. It's been phenomenal to watch the team and to see the camaraderie across all the boards and listening to all the experts and making sure that we are good to go. We've had to pull in a lot of extra boards and actually had another flight readiness review as well to make sure that the whole agency at NASA and then Boeing and ULA, everyone is ready to go. Very awesome to see this teamwork and the seamless teamwork across the board.
That Delta FR just a couple days ago that was held, and we had a press conference yesterday, and the team reported out that everything is moving forward. You know, you're talking about how hard the team worked. They deserved a little time off, so you guys took Memorial Day weekend to kind of recharge a little bit.
Yes, we did. We allowed some the folks to go and take a little bit of a break, have a barbecue if they needed to, and you know, get a little bit of a recharge, as you said, you know, to be able to get back into and have a clear mind and be able to get back into the procedures for this week.
Further proof that you are indeed a program manager for CCP. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it, and continued good luck on the team working towards launch.
Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, we'll send it back to you.
We have teams monitoring today's launch operations here in Florida as well as in Houston. In the room right next to Leroy, you have ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennicke, who have been monitoring operations with the rocket and the spacecraft for the last 3 hours.
Yeah, Dia, we've actually been monitoring them close the hatch and start the pressurization process. As you've seen there on your screen, I want to give you a little bit of perspective on how this works, and it's kind of interesting what the astronauts will experience sitting in there. It's a lot like when you feel a pressure change when you're in an aircraft. So their ears will pop, and the whole process, you know, doesn't take very long. It just takes a couple of minutes. But our team is checking about half a dozen valves and more than 60 seals. So things like windows and hatches and vestibules, and they will let the spacecraft sit for about 10 minutes while they check. You could think of this as like inflating a balloon. When you start to inflate a balloon, you'd be able to tell pretty quickly if there was any kind of a leak where the air would be coming back out of it. So very similar process here, and that's what the team is going through. If you are just joining us, we are just under 1 hour till launch time. A couple of hours ago, our teams, the Boeing teams, were able to confirm that the leak rate remains acceptable. If you've been following along with us this week, you may have heard about the helium leak that we had, but we know now the leak rate remains acceptable. And in fact, our teams even said that it looks better than before. So all good news. And Dylan, Atlas really has been all over the solar system. Today's a little different because we have crew on board.
Well, that's right, Lauren. And so, you know, we really are thrilled to have Butch and Suni on board, and thrilled to be a part of this program as we put Atlas back in service for human space flight. You know, this, on the one hand, we have some really thoroughly established processes and procedures that we've used for missions to the sun, the moon, Mars, and we're using those today. But this countdown really is unlike anything we've done before, and so we're just absolutely thrilled to be a part of it. We remain in our final built-in hold now as we continue to prepare for liftoff, but there are still a few things ahead of us today. You know, as you talked about, the blue team is on the pad while that leak check is going on. They're continuing their preps to clear out. Once we do get the area clear, we'll be preparing the vehicle's propulsion and hydraulic systems for launch. We'll also be getting some data and loading that into the flight computer that will help Atlas and Centaur steer through the upper level winds as we pierce the atmosphere. You'll also be hearing some comm checks between the Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo and the Starliner crew and Houston as well. As we get all those things will take us closer and closer to our launch opportunity today, coming up at 12:25 and 40 seconds. And of course, the one big visual cue that you will get that we're moving right along will be a retraction of that big crew access arm. So that's going to be coming up here in just a little over 40 minutes. A little under 40 minutes, I should say. But yeah, the big crew access arm will retract, and at that point we'll be very close to launch.
And it's really important that the crew cleans everything up.
On channel 1. Go FTS. Operation 55, step 270, FTS open loop test is complete. Roger.
All right. All right, we just heard that leak check is complete. Again, we are just under 1 hour. We're about 56, 57 minutes right now away from launch. The cabin leak check is complete, and we are moving forward nominally. Feeling like a great day to go to space, Dylan.
I agree. Let's do it.
Megan, we will check back in with you in just a little bit. Back over to you guys.
Well said, Dylan. Let's do it. And actually, why don't we take the time now to take another look at the crew making history with this test flight. You see Commander Butch Wilmore closest to the screen here, corner right. Now, Commander Butch Wilmore, NASA astronaut and retired U.S. Navy captain, was raised in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, is married to Deanna Wilmore, and they have 2 daughters. As a naval pilot, Butch racked up more than 8,000 flight hours and 663 carrier landings, all in tactical jet aircraft. He completed 4 operational deployments supporting missions like Operation Desert Storm. Before his selection to NASA, Wilmore was on exchange to the Air Force as a flight test instructor at the Air Force Test Pilot School at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Butch is a veteran of 2 space flights as a pilot on Space Shuttle Atlantis in 2009, and then in 2014 he served as flight engineer for Expedition 41. And so far, Wilmore has spent 178 days in space and performed 4 spacewalks. This flight test will be his 3rd mission to the ISS.
And Suni Williams, CFT's pilot and a retired U.S. Navy captain. NASA selected her as an astronaut in 1998, just 2 years before Butch. This will be Suni's 3rd mission to space, making her the first woman on a test flight of an orbital spacecraft. Her first trip to the ISS launched in 2006. She served as flight engineer for Expeditions 14-15. She then returned to the orbiting lab in 2012 and was commander of Expedition 33. Suni has more than 50 hours of spacewalk time, the 2nd most cumulative time by a female astronaut. So far, she has spent 322 days in space. Before NASA, Suni was a former naval test pilot and instructor, logging more than 3,000 flight hours in more than 30 different aircraft. Williams grew up in Needham, Massachusetts, and is married to Michael Williams.
Starliner at Houston on 1. Good pressure. The side hatch is being configured now. Audible noises may be heard.
Stand by, thanks.
She enjoys hanging out with her dogs, working out, hiking, and camping, as well as working on cars and houses.
What do these 2 not do, Mike?
No, they are some of NASA's finest, and were chosen to fly on this mission so that we can get Starliner certified and fly more Starliners to the space station in the future.
Mm-hmm. How does it feel, seeing your friends who you've trained alongside with so many years now? How does it feel to see them about 53 minutes to launch?
I am so proud of my friends. I've been working with Butch and Suni for, it's like Butch likes to say, half a decade, 5 years or so, and we're as you can see today, and all the work as we were getting ready to launch today, how much Butch and Suni, as well as we appreciate the whole team that we're part of. And Butch and Suni have really expressed their gratitude to everyone and try to include the team as we all go forward on this mission. And so I'm super proud of them, and I'm a little envious, but I'm really happy for them to be this close to flight. 53 minutes to go.
You're not the only astronaut that says that. It's okay.
As the crew aboard Starliner prepares to launch to the space station, let's take a look at what's in store for them, for Suni and Butch, while on this mission.
The
mission of the Commercial Crew Program is to provide transportation for astronauts to the International Space Station.
Multiple providers provide you redundancy. Redundancy is important, as we know. In our systems, we have redundant systems.
But actually, more importantly, it's providing the aerospace workforce the opportunity to test out new ideas, new technologies, and work them into spacecraft. Butch and I are the first two to fly the Starliner, so this flight will be a crew flight test, so there'll only be two on board. We're going to fly it up to the space station, dock it, and test it all out, and then come back home.
Everything's new. The procedures are new. We have procedures now that we didn't have a year ago because we've learned as the process has gone forward.
We've had 2 test flights uncrewed previously, but this will be the first time we're putting people on it.
We're test pilots, and so we're going to be testing the spacecraft in all aspects of the flight, from launch, on orbit, all the way to entry and landing.
We're testing out the environmental control system, we're testing out the manual flying of the spacecraft. Then while we're docked to the space station, we have a bunch of tasks to make sure that the spacecraft can act as a lifeboat. And just in case anything bad goes on the International Space Station, the crew on board can come to the Starliner and make sure that they're okay.
This has a mode where we call it backup mode, which is your get home mode, if you will. We can, without any communication at all, we can still effect a return to Earth, do a deorbit burn, and hit the point where we're trying to land, even without our computers. You know, that old mantra, failure is not an option, because it's a very dynamic thing we do flying in space, and it's not very forgiving, and we know that. And that's why we have these multiple systems and multiple redundant capabilities, because human life is special, and we want to preserve it at all costs.
I think exploration is just in the human heart. Butch, he describes himself as the first thing he said as a kid was why, and I think that's in all of us. Maybe we don't verbalize it, but we all ask why, and that's what exploration is. It's that next step of why. So why not go back to the moon? Why not try to live on the moon? It seems like a natural stepping stone to the next thing, Mars, which just calls us. Like, why is that planet there? What is the future of that planet? What is the future of our planet? And to be able to take these next steps in exploration, we're going to start answering those questions.
We stand on the pinnacle. This is kind of where integration, everything comes together, which is where Suni and I sit. And this is just a part of the ongoing process of growing and expounding our knowledge and our understanding of all things for the benefit of mankind.
I am Suni Williams, and I am ready to fly NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test.
I'm Butch Wilmore, and I am ready to fly NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test.
And we are ready to see them fly as well. You know, we've been inviting our viewers, you guys, to reach out to us on social media and ask us any questions you might have about this historic flight test. And one that we've been seeing a lot is, you know, why are teams still launching while there is a helium leak on Starliner, on the Starliner spacecraft? Mike, can you address that?
No, that's a really good question, and we spent a whole week and a half getting ready to be able to answer that to ourselves and to Butch and Suni, saying, why is this okay, or how is this okay, or should we take the spacecraft back and replace it? Well, we looked at not just the data that we've seen, but also the what could happen in the worst case, and then what could happen even worse than that. And at every point, because Starliner, you heard what Butch said on the overview there, was that Starliner has a lot of redundant systems. So even if we were to, if that leak were to get bigger, and it hasn't, but if it were to get bigger, it could get a lot bigger, and we'd still be okay. And even if it leaked out the entire bottle of helium for that manifold, we could still fly back and land safely in the desert in southwest United States. So NASA looked at what the risks were, and working with the crew, and the crew office said, hey, this is not ideal. We don't like this, but this is a test flight, and we were able to manage this risk and accept this risk, and it's a really tiny leak. We will be okay, and if it isn't, here's what we do. And we spent a lot of time in the simulators and writing procedures just in case. Just like we saw a little bit earlier, United Launch Alliance, they had a small anomaly. They said, all right, here's our alternate procedures. Let's run through it. And they went through it methodically. We do the same thing on board. So we have everything ready just in case.
Yeah, and just for more context, as you said, this is a very small leak. Starliner could handle 4 more leaks, or this one leak growing by 100 times its current size before needing to be managed in flight. And actually, other spacecraft like Shuttle have launched with similar helium leaks in the past. Also important to note, teams continue to watch and monitor this leak to make sure that it's not growing. And as we've said, it has not grown in the time that they've first detected this leak. So again, that's why the decision is being made to fly, and that's why we continue to march towards our instantaneous launch opportunity at 12:25 and 40 seconds Eastern Time. Meanwhile, inside Mission Control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, folks there are keeping a close eye on launch, continue to do so. Here's NASA's Brandy Dean and Boeing's Jim May.
Thanks, Megan. Welcome back to the Starliner Flight Control Room in Mission Control Houston, where the flight control team is continuing to follow along with all the activities going on in Florida now that we are 46 minutes away from today's launch. Once Starliner gets off the pad, Jim and I will be with you through Ascent, giving you play-by-play and expanding on the calls that you'll hear Capcom Joshua Kutrick making to Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams on board.
There are a number of major milestones you want to keep an eye out for during Starliner's climb to orbit. The first call that you'll hear from Starliner's crew is roll program, coming from Commander Wilmore, indicating that Starliner is rolling into the right orientation for ascent and orbit operations. Then about 45 seconds into the flight, the crew and Starliner will reach max Q, which is the maximum dynamic pressure that they will experience during ascent, and that happens just before they reach Mach 1.
Then a minute and 35 seconds into flight, the solid rocket boosters that give Starliner its first major push into orbit will have used up all of their fuel. Starliner will hold on to them for a little more than a minute after that and then jettison the boosters before second stage takes over and take Starliner away the rest of the way.
Starliner will actually reach orbit around 11 minutes and 58 seconds into flight, at which at that point the Centaur main engine will cut off. Starliner and its crew will hold on to that stage for a couple minutes and then separate from it at around the 14-minute, 58-second mark. From there, Butch and Sonny will be free flying on orbit in Starliner.
During Ascent, you'll hear Kutrick mentioning a number of abort-related milestones as Starliner moves past them. Starliner can safely abort all the way up to orbit, including off the east coast, off the coast of Newfoundland, and off the coast of Ireland. Beyond that, it'll be able to safely reach abort to orbit, just staying in space as an abort. And of course, we're hoping not to need any of those.
Request permission to begin white room closeout.
Roger, thanks, Slick. Blue team, perform toxic vapor and O2 checks when raising the environmental seal and configure white room for launch.
Roger.
And Slick, if you get a annulus purge disconnect time. And once Starliner has made it to orbit, the last major milestone before the crew begins what we called orbit ops is called the orbit insertion or OI burn. That will move Starliner into an elliptical orbit as opposed to a more circular one.
Slick, we're calling it 1537 Zulu.
Roger. Going from a circular orbit, which they get off of after separating from Atlas, into an elliptical orbit, and then from there Starliner will be on its way to International Space Station.
Yeah, and it sounds like the teams that have been getting Butch and Sonny ready are just about done with their job and ready to move, or getting ready to move away from the white room. But before we go back to Florida, let's check in with Rob Navius in the International Space Station Flight Control Team. Rob?
Thanks, Brandy. Just inside 44 minutes until launch and back here in the ISS Flight Control Room, flight controllers are keeping tabs on the countdown and monitoring the work on board in the aftermath of the docking of the unpiloted Progress resupply craft earlier today at 7:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, NASA astronauts Matt Dominic, Mike Barrett, Jeanette Epps, and Tracy Dyson, along with Station Commander Oleg Kononenko of Roscosmos and fellow cosmonauts Nikolai Chub and Alexander Grabenkin, will form the welcoming committee when Wilmore and Williams arrive on board tomorrow. The dock timeline is elastic. That means that the number of days that Starliner could stay at the station could be pared down or expanded depending on any further launch delays or undocking delays driven by weather conditions at the western U.S. landing sites for Starliner. One critical dock day for the Starliner crew.
Starliner Houston, cabin leak check complete. You can open the vent valve.
All right, great. That's in work.
One critical dock day for the Starliner crew will come 2 days prior to their scheduled undocking, when they load the last of the cargo items to be returned to Earth in the vehicle, and will conduct onboard manual piloting proficiency that will enable them to stay sharp for their departure from the station and the deorbit and entry events that will follow. So here we are at the intersection of Cape Canaveral, Houston, and space. And aboard the station, two of the Expedition 71 crew members, Jeanette Epps and Tracy Dyson, recently took a moment to set the table for the arrival of Wilmore and Williams at their orbital destination.
Hey, Suni and Butch, we can't wait for you guys to join us here on station. We'll be monitoring your every move on the journey, and we'll be waiting to open the hatch and welcome you to your home away from home.
Butch and Suni, we know you've waited a while to get your ride aboard Starliner, but we know it will have been worth every minute. So from all of us on the International Space Station, Godspeed, and we'll see you soon.
As we prepare in less than an hour to launch 2 astronauts to space during this test flight, let's check back in with NASA's Antonio Jaramillo, who spoke earlier today with NASA's top administrator about this mission.
It's always an honor to be joined by NASA leadership, and joining me today is NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. Administrator Nelson, can you tell us why it's so important for the space agency that we have another American space company launching from American soil?
You always want to have a backup position, and in this case, a second spacecraft. For example, when we go to the moon, we will have 2 landers. We will have a SpaceX lander, that's first, and then the Blue Origin lander. But this is a significant launch of a test of a brand new human-rated spacecraft, and it's only 6 in the history of NASA. There was Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, then the Space Shuttle, then Dragon, and now the Boeing Starliner launching for the first time with humans on board.
That's right. It's very historic, very important, and you touched on this. Why is it important in general that we do have multiple spacecraft available to send humans to space?
Because we want to explore. We are exploring in many different ways with humans as our astronauts. We go back to the moon, not just to go to the moon, but to get ready, to learn, to live, to create in order to go to Mars. But that's just one part of our space program. The science, research, the exploration of the heavens, the commercial program. We're going back to the moon later this year with a commercial lander with a NASA instrument that's going to dig to see if there is water on the South Pole. It's a whole combination of a bunch of things that are going on.
That's right. You briefly touched on that. I mean, there's already been a ton of exciting missions this year. What else can the public look forward to?
Well, in addition to those, remember the first A in NASA is aeronautics. And we're going to fly the needle-nose new supersonic. It goes faster than the speed of sound, and it's designed so that it will not make the sonic boom, so that it can fly faster than the speed of sound over populated areas. That's one. We got another aviation project to improve the fuel efficiency by 30% of a mid-range single-aisle transport aircraft like the Boeing 737.
That is fascinating. Administrator Nelson, thank you so much for joining us here today. We'll send it back over to you.
We interviewed interviewed the administrator earlier because he is currently at the ASOC with the launch team as we watch the crew access arm moving away from the Starliner spacecraft. Now, the plan is for Butch and Suni to be docked to the ISS for at least 8 days, and after they will return to Earth with a soft touchdown in the American Southwest. This is video and sound from inside Starliner during its return to Earth 2 years ago as part of the Orbital Flight Test 2 mission. Its heat shield reaches 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit during re-entry, and parachutes are then deployed, and the heat shield discarded to expose Starliner's airbags. The original test pilot, Rosie the Rocketeer, you see there, collected data of what astronauts might experience during landing. Starliner is the first and only American orbital crew capsule to land on land. This allows for quicker access to crew and cargo. It also makes turning the spacecraft around for future missions quicker. But Mike, Starliner can also land in water, like we were talking about earlier.
Yes, Starliner is a very capable spacecraft. Of course, we want it to land on land for the reasons you said. I love those airbags. I can't wait to ask Butch and Suni how good those are. But in case of emergency, we can land on water. And we have a central airbag, another one.
28 seconds, excess burn duration, and we'll go north to triage 6 if necessary.
The crew was just calling in. They just got some data.
And those are all good words, Starliner. Good feedback. One additional item for you. In the commander's folio, you'll recall you have your 2 tablets. You've got a serial number 12 and a serial number 13. Now, they're both ready to go, but one thing for you. Serial number 12, we were looking at footage here. Its time is out of sync. So it's no issue for you till orbit. When you're on orbit, you'll want to get that tablet, serial number 12, back in sync with the time on your DUs. It's only going to influence where you see the red line and bold. So if you did have to use bold before that, go ahead and do it on 13. Otherwise, we'll just resync in flight, and we can help you with that when we get there.
All right, good words. We'll copy that, and if we have any questions when we get there, we'll give you a call. And I have confirmed that I can reach the tablet.
Houston copies.
That was Josh Kutrick giving some last-minute info to Butch and Suni about their tablets, as well as in case of emergency where to go left or right at the end of the slide wires. But yeah, Starliner can land on water. We'd rather not, but it has that capability, and it has a different airbag configuration for that.
Yeah, the flexibility is great.
We have just about a half hour left before launch. Let's check back in with NASA's Antonio Jaramillo, who's now with someone who's been a part of Starliner since the beginning. Tony?
Thank you, Dee. For those of us just joining, we are here at OSB 2, one of the viewing locations for this launch. And joining me is Chris Ferguson, former NASA astronaut and Boeing astronaut. Chris, you've been part of Starliner since the beginning. How does it feel to be here and now get to watch it take flight with astronauts on board?
Well, given it's such a darn gorgeous day, I'm really excited. Of course, this is the culmination of probably 12 years of, just watching and working and getting involved with the development. But I was very excited to see it all come together. It's a little breezy out here, but you can't beat the weather.
Absolutely. It is a gorgeous day. Now, Chris, if you could give a piece of advice to Butch and Suni and to all our astronauts flying on our commercial crew missions, what would it be?
Well, Butch and Suni are pretty darn experienced. They probably don't need my advice. But what I would say, on a very first ascent of a vehicle and a re-entry, I would say take it all in, experience it. Think about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what's staging going to be like, what's it like when the parachutes come out, because these are questions that everyone's going to know when you get back, right? We want to know, did we build a vehicle that's comfortable to fly?
Absolutely. We can't wait to know. I mean, we're all taking it in here too. Chris, it's our understanding that your fingerprints are all over the spacecraft, in particular the launch console and displays. What can Butch and Suni expect to see and experience aboard Starliner for their flight, and how does that compare to flying the space shuttle?
Yeah, I think the idea behind the design is to make sure that the crew always has reasonable awareness of what's going on. I remember with the space shuttle days, sometimes the displays were a little archaic. You had to really almost have a graduate degree to understand exactly what you were looking at. So the idea is to make it a lot more airplane-like, because the crews are very experienced pilots and aviators, and for the next generation of Starliner astronauts that come along, we want to make it very intuitive. So we've reduced the number of switches to the bare minimum. The shuttle had 1,000. We have 25 maybe. I don't know what the right number is, but it's a very streamlined. It's capable of being flown by a single person. So there's a lot of, I would say, upgrades that make it safer and a lot more flexible than its predecessor, the Space Shuttle.
Definitely a very impressive spacecraft. And Butch and Suni, they're going to also perform a few manual demonstrations aboard. You also were a part of this flight test in the beginning. Can you talk to us a little bit about these manual demonstrations and just kind of the importance of why Boeing decided to have both a blend of autonomous and manual capabilities?
Yeah, there's always a sort of a contentious look, between engineers and pilots on how do I control the spacecraft. The pilots always want the ultimate ability to take over in a situation when they need to. So the Starliner flies very much like the Space Shuttle and the Apollo and the other capsule vehicles with 2 different hand controllers where you can control all 6 degrees of freedom. You can maneuver it to an attitude if you needed to, say, charge your solar arrays or pick up a communication satellite. And they'll have the opportunity, of course, to check that out. And then there's also a deeper level of redundancy called backup mode, which is a means that the crew could manually fly the vehicle, even in the unlikely event that all the flight management computers fail. So there's a lot of redundancy, and it really is a true piloting vehicle, which is, I think, why the NASA customers really enjoy it so much.
I'm sure. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Megan D. Mike, back over to you.
All right, a quick check of the clock. We are 31 minutes and 40 seconds to liftoff of NASA's Boeing crew flight test. And right now, what you just saw on the screen there, you see Butch and Suni. They are patiently waiting their launch inside of Starliner's spacecraft there. And then also, we did see the pad team who've been helping Butch and Suni into their spacecraft, as well as securing the spacecraft and closing the doors. They have since left the pad, right, Mike?
Absolutely. So only thing that's left is we have a rocket and a spacecraft and 2 human beings sitting on top getting ready for launch in 31 minutes.
Yeah, and so what we expect to hear coming up is just repeated communication checks with Capcom and Houston and with the crew. And also this is an opportunity, right, to discuss any anomalies or resolutions, but we haven't heard anything.
Yes, I think we hopefully got that out of our system earlier, and here we go.
Go ahead. Yes, sir. Per step 20, operation 60, blast engine area is clear. Roger.
They just confirmed that it is just indeed the rocket, spacecraft, and 2 human beings.
And so, yeah, so we'll hear those continued checks, and this is just an opportunity for some status updates if needed, right? This is kind of time that's built in to allow for discussion if needed.
Absolutely. We're waiting for the Earth to rotate in just the right position for that instantaneous launch window. And any anomalies we had, we got out of the way. And now everybody is
minus 30 minutes.
Double checking their data.
RC, conduct weather briefing on Channel 8 weather conference.
And the weather.
Right.
Roger. Arm control, start arm hydraulic final prep. Roger. Blocks 1, perform pogo suppressor charge.
Roger.
Prop 1, perform RD-180 transducer converter calibration.
Roger.
P&E 2, perform Centaur LH2 SVV cycle test.
Roger.
These are nominal countdown checks for the from the launch conductor, Doug Lebo, asking his team to do their 30-minute steps to get the rocket that much closer to ready for launch.
A historic flight test, as we've been telling you throughout this broadcast. We've been on air now since 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time to tell you about the first 2 astronauts that are going to fly in Starliner. And again, we keep seeing live views of them inside Starliner. Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Suni Williams.
RD-180 transducer calibration is complete, and the engine FIV is in a closed condition.
Roger.
Oh, minus 29 minutes.
Flight control, start flight control final prep.
Roger.
Now, Suni will be the first woman to test an orbital spacecraft. Another fun fact, the last time people flew to space in an Atlas-class rocket was 61 years ago at the end of the Mercury program. CFT is the final test to certify a second commercial spacecraft to ferry astronauts to and from the space station, which really is a wonderful resource to us and many countries and also research institutions. All right, again, 28 minutes, 5 seconds to liftoff. Let's head back over to Brandy and Jim inside Mission Control in Houston.
LCP-2. Go ahead. Since our LH2 SVB cycle tests are complete.
Flight test
Roger.
Flight Director Mike Lammers is just about to poll the flight control team here in Houston for a go or no-go, verifying that all of Starliner systems are ready for launch today. Everything's looking good at the moment, and Lammers will use this poll to determine his own response to the final go-no-go poll by the launch conductor just before liftoff.
Once we do get into the terminal countdown time frame, there are...
Go ahead. Roger. Do we have the temperature update complete?
Roger, the RP1 temperature update complete.
Roger. Prop 1, initiate fuel fill sequence.
Roger.
And once we're in that terminal countdown time frame,
go ahead.
A few major discussion aboard the CISA temp. It's a noisy measurement. I'd like to take this to 6, get a recommendation, probably to disable.
Roger. Convene the anomaly team and provide a recommendation.
We'll go. L minus 27 minutes.
And the first
LC arm control.
one of the major activities that...
Go ahead.
Step 100. Arm hydraulic final preps are complete.
Roger.
One of the first activities Mike Lammer's team will be doing is transitioning Starliner from ground power to battery power. It'll come about 18 minutes before launch. We leave it about as late as possible so that the team can launch with those batteries as close to full power as possible. A few minutes later, with less than 10 minutes to go before liftoff, Starliner's ordnance will be armed, and that activates the critical systems that are needed to detach all the things from Starliner that will ultimately jettison as it climbs to orbit, and if it were needed to abort. And finally, just 1 minute and 15 seconds before launch, they'll work with the crew to activate the launch abort system, which would rocket the crew to safety in the case of an abort, or on the pad, or early in the ascent.
This is likely the last you'll hear from us until liftoff, so we are going to send you back to the team in Florida to let Megan, Dee, and Mike see us through the rest of the countdown. We'll be back once Starliner is on its way. Go Starliner.
Brandy and Jim. Okay, let's take a closer look now at Starliner. The next generation crew capsule measures 16.5 feet tall with a diameter of 15 feet. That's about the size of a mid-size SUV. It was designed to carry up to 7 astronauts or a mix of crew and cargo for missions to the International Space Station. After today's test flight, NASA will fly crews of 4 or 5 with cargo, and Starliner is also reusable up to 10 times.
Yeah, we're looking
LCOSM.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Per step 60, flight hazard area has been cleared. All personnel accounted for.
Roger.
All right, everybody is in place for launch. Starliner, we're looking forward to getting it certified so we can continue our missions to the International Space Station with 4 NASA astronauts. And Boeing will have the option to use Starliner to fly to other space stations and to help build the low Earth economy, low Earth orbit economy.
Hey, Mike, let's squeeze in a social question since we've invited viewers to send them to us. This is from John on YouTube asking, how did the astronaut train for this mission? It's actually a question from a 10-year-old named Maddie.
Well, hi, Maddie. Hi, John. Yeah, so we spend a lot of time practicing exactly what's going on today. We sit inside a simulator which looks and feels like a rocket, and we push all the buttons and switches and look at our data. And sometimes they even give us these things called malfunctions, which something goes wrong, and we have to think our way through it and follow our procedures to have a safe practice mission. And we do that for about 1.5 years. In this case, for us, it's a new spacecraft, so it took us 5 years, but it takes us about 1.5 years to train for new spacecraft.
Roger. Please disable line item 390.
Active.
Again, some nominal call-outs there as we march towards our instantaneous launch opportunity at 12:25 and 40 seconds.
It's really neat that we're hearing all the voice chatter back and forth from our team. I mean, what a nice thing to be able to share with everybody watching today.
Flight control final press complete and Atlas hydraulics at standby pressure.
Roger.
And with that, let's head back over.
Go ahead.
Line item 390 has been disabled.
Roger.
Let's head back over to ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennicky from the ASOC.
Thank you, Megan. So you may have heard just a few minutes ago the team talking about they're actually telling Butch and Suni once they get up into space that they will need to sync their tablet. Wanted to give a little bit of a perspective on that. Basically, it's just the system clock in that tablet. You could think of it as it's just like going down to the start menu on Windows and syncing up the clock. It's been, of course, turned off for a little bit, and not connected to internet. So it's just something like you would do at home to re-establish the new time on your microwave. But Dylan, they've also heard about an anomaly on the ULA side. Not a big deal, but let's give them a little bit of perspective on that.
Sure, Lauren. So we had, we did hear a report of a noisy temperature measurement, and this particular measurement is the interstage adapter, but so that's the adapter between Atlas and Centaur. And this measurement is something that's automatically disabled when we enter our terminal count at T-minus 4 minutes. But over the past few minutes, we've observed this measurement bouncing around a little bit. So now that the vehicle is fully loaded with propellants and we've been stable for quite a while, this measurement is really not something that we rely heavily on when we're fully tanked and stable. So we're going to go ahead and disable it early rather than waiting for the automatic disable as we approach terminal count. And that just would prevent any what we'd consider to be a nuisance alarm at this point. So nothing major there. It's kind of a standard operating procedure for a noisy measurement like this.
And we are just a little over 21 minutes out from launch.
Logo suppressor charge is complete.
Roger.
As I was saying, just a little over, right now, about 21 minutes out from launch. And I've been thinking a lot about Butch and Suni going back to the ISS for a third time for both of them. Suni told us that really the ISS feels like home for them. If you think about it, they've both spent a good portion of time there. They both spent 6 months in their first trip up and 6 months in their second trip up. So now going back for their third time, they're going to a place that they consider home. If you think about living somewhere for literally a year out of your life, it means a lot to you. It's very special. And Suni even told us that...
Go ahead.
Step 90, all secondary decoms verified on RF link.
Roger.
And Suni even told us that she cried the last time she left the ISS because she thought it would be her last time in space. So you can just imagine how special this trip will be for both her and Butch. And we are getting very close now to that moment where they are going to be headed to space. We are coming up on a call for the visors to come down. We're going to hear Capcom tell the crew to pull their visors down and to configure their suit flow.
minus 20 minutes. Starliner, Beanie 1, reinitiate A3 Charlie. Configure suit flow. RLM, verify redline monitor and event table are in the correct configuration for terminal count. Verified. RC, verify solar radiation, acceptable for launch. Verified.
All right, so you saw the crew starting to pull their visors down there. That configuration is needed for proper airflow through their suit. In case of an emergency, they could pressurize their suits quickly if needed. That is the importance of having everything zipped up and ready to go. And they really enjoy the fact that these helmets are much easier to get on. They just sit back on their suits, just like a hoodie of a sweatshirt, so they're able just to pull them forward and zip them up.
Houston, Starliner, visor config complete.
Houston copies, visor config complete.
All right, they're all zipped up. And this config
All
also
communications switch to channel 1. All personnel and visitors remain in present position until launch. Maintain operational silence in the LCC.
So, Lauren, that's kind of
the LC with a terminal count briefing. If a condition exceeds the launch constraint anytime after the terminal count status check, the observer shall announce hold, hold, hold on channel 1, identify their station, and briefly state the reason for the hold.
So, Lauren, we just heard a couple of our standard pre-launch announcements. During the countdown, the individual teams, so think of the Atlas propulsion team and the Centaur propulsion team, are off working on separate nets as they perform their functions. All that work is complete, and so essentially what that last announcement does is bring the entire team back to the primary command channel, net 1, loop 1 as we call it, and the rest of the countdown will now be conducted on net 1, and we'll all kind of hear that together. Also, at this point, our operators are going to be heads down.
Verification.
Roger.
And so the only conversation in the LCC from this point forward is just going to be the working through the launch procedures. There'll be no other ancillary conversation whatsoever.
And we'll also be listening to some of those side channels that aren't public on your TV screen right now. So we'll be listening for a few polls, one that's called the Starliner Readiness Poll for terminal count. And that is one of the shorter polls, and it will be coming from the Boeing Mission Control Center, or we call it the BMCC here in Florida. The spacecraft launch conductor, Brian Gardner, will poll people in that room in charge of the propulsion system and power and many other subsystems. He will have 3 call-outs to him.
minus 17 minutes. OSM, place SRB ignition SNA switch to the enable position.
SRB ignition enabled.
And verify FCO, RCO, and OSM hold fire switches are in the proceed position.
Ready to proceed. Launch on time verified.
Roger.
And
LCP anyone?
Go ahead.
AHB charging reestablish and at flight mass.
Roger.
So, Lauren, we're quickly coming to the end now of the launch vehicle pre-launch procedure, and we're just about 7 minutes away from our terminal count status check. But we heard a couple of call-outs there. That one of the range safety representatives activated the SRB ignition enable, so that allows us to fire the SRB ordnance circuits that ignite the SRBs at T0. Those circuits are not enabled till just as we heard, just a few moments ago.
minus 16 minutes.
And also another range safety system is the hold fire system. So there are remote switches at the Space Launch Delta 45 Morel Operations Center up the road. And if any of the range safety representatives see an issue, they can press a button and stop our countdown remotely. So those switches have been enabled as well.
All right, you are taking a live look at Atlas V and Starliner stacked on top with astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams inside, ready to go to space. We are just coming up on about 15 minutes from launch, and we are going to send it over to NASA's Daryl Nell at Hangar AE. Daryl.
Thank you very much, Lauren. And you've heard the polls from ULA. Also polling a go. The NASA operations manager, Richard Jones, checked with his team, gave them the go. As far as weather is concerned, you heard it mentioned on the nets, there was an L-30 weather brief.
We see your CM Essential. That's just to do with the internal power transition. No action.
Okay, no action. We got the suit fan DP low. It's back on now.
Looking.
No issue there. But again, the weather, 90% go. No concern. We're expected to be go for T0. We are go right now. Green across the board. We do have some high cirrus clouds, as you can see there up in the upper parts of the sky. And you can see the ground winds.
LC flight, channel 1 and air to ground 1 are now merged, going to air to ground 1.
Roger.
LC flight, air to ground 1, ready for comm check with Starliner and channel 1.
Roger. Starliner, LC, comm check on channel 1.
So we got you loud and clear. Looks like we got all suit fans failed a warning.
Which will
And I copied your comm check, Starliner. In Capcom, did you catch that message?
And Starliner and LC Capcom A-firm, we see the messages. We're working more to follow. Stand by.
Standing by.
Butch Wilmore has a warning light on his console. He's talking it over with Capcom. While they do that,
Starliner, visors open, please, while we work the suit fans. Visors open.
so they're going to have the astronauts open their visors.
All right, visors are open.
While they work an issue with
that. Houston, but suit fan Bravo went down and switched to Alpha. They had a DP low, and then it, of course, went off. We still show Houston. Power to Alpha is on.
Working an issue with
Houston
suit.
copies.
Minus 13 minutes.
And Starliner, we showed the same for your info. We're swapping suit fans back to Bravo. Continue to stand by for us.
Standing by.
So the issue here is a problem with the primary suit fan operation. They got to have that suit fan to keep the air circulating inside their suits. With that having a warning, they've asked, Capcom has asked the astronauts to pop open their visors so they can get some fresh air, and they'll work it into a redundant mode, going into a redundant suit fan. So they continue to work that. As we get under T-minus 12 minutes and counting. The Boeing team working an issue in real time right now.
LC Flight Channel 1, go ahead. Yeah, the condition we're in an LPT condition with both suit fans down. We're trying to get these reactivated. But we're going to proceed. Roger. So good to stow the crew access arm. I'm good. Roger.
All right, the team continuing to work the suit fan issue. Again, just to recap on weather, we're go. And now we're looking to take the next steps. So we'll send it back to Megan, Mike, and Dee.
Minus 11 minutes.
As you just heard there, 11 minutes to liftoff. From only the 6th-time NASA astronauts will launch on a new spacecraft designed for crew. I want to ask you really quick before we toss it over for that terminal count, the final moments of the countdown. How are you guys feeling?
Feeling great, excited, making sure teams work to troubleshoot the last little bit, and hopefully we'll see liftoff today.
I'm very excited for Butch and Suni, and as we like to say, go Atlas, go Centaur, go Starliner.
Go Butch and Suni, that's right. All right, so let's send it over to the ASOC where Lauren and Dylan will walk us through the final moments of the countdown.
All right, thank you, Megan. So what we are looking for next here is that crew access arm to start making its way back over.
Starliner, on our end, we brought suit fan Bravo back on. It looked good. We need both. We need to prove that A is also there, so we're commanding Alpha on and then off at this time. More to follow.
All right.
Yep, we see it. And we're still visors up, so you know.
All right.
So you heard this troubleshooting happening in real time. They are moving forward with everything else while they troubleshoot
Flight
that
verify CFT 100 on internal power. Verified. Starliner, configure ordnance for launch.
Second work.
Starliner on internal power now. The spacecraft is running completely on its own. Ordnance has also been configured for launch. That means the devices that initiate our separation
events.
events.
We reactivated suit fan Bravo. Suit fan Alpha is also working to a clear LPT condition. And for the crew, you can take visors down.
Visors down and ordnance configured.
LC copies both.
All right, it's got to feel good to put those visors down now.
So Lauren, we were seeing that big visual cue, the crew access arm retracting. It takes about 2 minutes to retract and stow 120 degrees away from Starliner back against the crew access tower. In the event of an emergency, it can be redeployed in less than 15 seconds.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We don't want to see it do that, but we're glad it can if it needs to. And we have a couple of polls coming up here in about 2 minutes. The launch vehicle poll, launch vehicle management poll.
Yeah, Lauren, that's right at L-8 minutes. Next door to us in the Mission Director Center, that's going to be the Mission Management Team poll for launch. And at L-7 minutes, the final terminal count status check down in the LCC. And that is where Chief Launch Director Doug Lebo will poll his team, verify their readiness, and then the launch director next door to us will give him permission to launch today.
LC arm control. Go ahead. True access arm stowed for launch. Roger.
All right, the crew access arm is stowed.
LC switch to ready position.
Everything looking good?
All steps are complete prior to status check.
And Dylan and I will be a little more quiet as we get closer here to launch so we can listen into all of the actions as they're happening in real time. Again, just under 7.5 minutes till Starliner astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams make history as the first crew headed to the International Space Station on Boeing Starliner.
L-7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count, Atlas system, propulsion,
Go.
hydraulics,
Go.
pneumatics,
Go.
LO2,
Go.
water,
Go.
sensor systems, propulsion, go, pneumatics, go, LO2, go, LH2,
Go.
has gas, go, electrical systems, airborne, go, ground, go, facility, go, RFFTS, go, flight control, go, GCQ,
Go.
op support,
Go.
comm, go, umbilicals, go, arm control, go, ECS, go, redline monitor, go, quality, go, op safety manager, go, ULA safety officer, go, vehicle system engineer, go, anomaly chief, go, range coordinator, clear to proceed, flight director, Houston flight is go, Starliner,
Starliner, go.
launch director,
you have permission to launch.
proceeding with the count, ALC, verify T0 is set for 16:25:40 Zulu.
Verified.
Starliner net is clear.
Thank you, LC. To all of you sitting on console, whether you're in Houston, BMCC, ASOC, Atlas, this is a great day to be proud of your nation. And all of you listening as well, whether you're at Banana Creek or the Causeway or the rooftop at LCC or the ASOC and other places around our nation, like the Bay Area building and other places where you are viewing what's taking place. Again, for you, it's a great day to be proud of your nation, great day to be proud of Boeing, great day to be proud of ULA and NASA. And we are one nation, under God, indivisible. And when you together, we together use the power of that combination, we can do some pretty amazing things. So LC, with that, we are ready to put some fire in this rocket and propel this spacecraft to the International Space Station, where all these fine Americans have designed and have prepared it to be. Calypso, take us to space and back.
Roger, Starliner.
LC flight, Starliner configured for terminal count.
Roger. All steps are complete prior to terminal count.
And with that, we are ready to go to space, Lauren.
Hard not to be emotional listening to those words from Butch. I'm sure we'll be playing that speech back for a long time.
Will be T-minus 4 minutes and counting. 3, 2, 1, mark. .355.
Ground pyros enabled.
Launch pad ordnance circuits are now enabled.
Hold. Flight control received a CCLS, hold it. Approximately T-minus 350.
LC switch not ready. All personnel turn to recycle section. Operation 80. LC switch is not ready. Clock stopped at T-minus 3 minutes 50 seconds. Starliner, you should not hear any vent at this point.
Starliner standing by.
ALC, reset countdown clock to T-minus 4 minutes and holding. Active.
LC, Peony 2.
Go ahead.
Sensor tank pressures are stable.
Roger.
LC, Peony 1.
Go ahead.
Atlas tank pressures are stable.
Roger. OSM, place SRB ignition SNA switch to disabled position.
SRB ignition disabled.
Okay, consoles, step 60, report launch vehicle status. Atlas lead.
Atlas tank pressures and helium bottles stable. Atlas propulsion system stable.
Roger. Centaur lead.
Centaur tank pressures and helium bottles stable. Centaur propulsion system stable. Has gas readings nominal.
Roger. Vehicle electrical. VE channel 1.
Avionics system stable.
Roger. And LC can verify no indications of hazards. Flight LC.
LC Starliner systems are stable.
Roger. Starliner, last arm switch to off.
Last arm switch is off.
FCS in pre-flight mode, SS VAPs inactive, OCU safe in EDS in test mode.
Roger. Arm control, deploy the crew access arm.
Roger.
Starliner, proceed with ordnance deactivation.
Ascent 1. Ordnance deconfigured. All off.
Roger.
LC.
And go ahead, ALC.
Countdown clock is reset, T-minus 4 minutes and holding.
Roger. Flight, verify CST 100 ordnance is safe.
Verified.
Okay, all stations, recycle systems back to T-minus 4 and holding configuration. Hold time occurred at T-minus 3 minutes 50 seconds. Report status at completion. And flight LC.
LC.
CST 100 power to external.
Copy, we'll put it in order.
LC Electron.
Go ahead.
Subset Bravo, Atlas LO2, continuing topping.
Roger.
LC Lux 2.
Go ahead.
Substep Golf, Centaur LO2, continuing topping.
Roger.
LC Field 2.
Go ahead.
Centaur LH2, continuing topping.
Roger.
LC
LC.
Peony 1.
Go ahead, Peony 1.
Atlas Pneumatics, pressure stable.
Roger.
LC Peony 2.
Go ahead.
Substep Echo CEC active.
Roger.
And substep Foxtrot sensor pneumatic system stable.
Roger.
LC Prop 1.
Go ahead.
Substep Charlie and substep Delta, Atlas propulsion and hydraulic system stable.
Roger.
LC ECS.
Go ahead.
Substep November ECS set point stable.
Roger.
LC, this flight control.
Go ahead.
Subset Kilo, flight control ready.
Roger.
If you're just joining us here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station,
Go ahead. Crew access arm is deployed. Roger.
we did have a automatic hold of our ground launch sequencer shortly after we began our terminal count for today's launch attempt. No indication yet as to what caused that hold of the automatic ground launch sequencer. The team is still evaluating data. In the meantime, the team is active recycling the vehicle to a good holding state so that we can prepare for our next steps. But for now,
Roger.
We are holding at T-minus 4 minutes, recycling the vehicle after a hold of our ground launch sequencer shortly after picking up terminal count for today's launch opportunity.
LC has gas. Go has gas. Substep hotel has gas. Normal scan pattern including cap. Roger. And flight LC. Channel 1. Yes. Roger. Secure CST-100 prop system. Last valve to remain open. Flight copies. Probably take us at least 5 minutes here. Yeah, copy.
We're going to send it over to NASA's Daryl Nail over at Hangar AE for some continuing coverage of our current
FTS
status.
LC.
Daryl?
Thanks, Dylan. And I'm listening to the NASA operations manager's loop.
Recycle status. Recycle. Roger. SYS LC.
Yes, LC. GC-30 is ready.
Roger.
As you mentioned, the ULA team now safing the vehicle, making sure all the high energy systems that were prepared to launch are now put into a safe configuration. At 12:21 p.m., roughly T-minus 3 minutes and 39 seconds, we got a hold.
Launch Director, LC Channel 1. LDM1. Yes, sir. So we had a hold call at T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds by the CCLS launch sequencer. So at this time, we've completed our recycle back to T-minus 4 and holding configuration and ready to proceed with a scrub crew egress operation. Yeah, roger that. Standby. Roger.
There you heard confirmation of the scrub call for this launch attempt today. Again, this was the ground launch sequencer, essentially the computer that launches.
LC. Roger.
This is the computer that is in
all
charge.
personnel going to Operation 85. OSM, LC.
OSM.
Establish the BDA roadblocks and open the flight hazard area.
Roger.
And all personnel on Channel 1 will be starting an approximate 65-minute hold at this time for flight crew egress. All systems maintain T-4 and holding configuration.
The hold time is not relevant at this point. The fact is they're getting it into a state where they can go through and get the crew out of the spacecraft. But I was mentioning the computer. This is the computer that when we go into terminal count, launches the rocket, brings a number of systems and a huge number of operations all at a rapid pace. Something with the GLS, it's not understood at this time what it is, caused the GLS to throw an automatic holdout at T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
Arm control. Yeah, per step 40, can you give me that call out on the status of the crew access arm?
Crew access arm deployed and latched. Arm control is terminated, ready for personnel access.
Roger. And FELC?
Go ahead.
Start CAT TVM system monitoring.
Roger.
RLM LC?
RLM on 1.
Disable RLM line items for crew egress per red line report.
Roger. LCFE.
Go ahead.
CAT TVM system enabled. Readings nominal.
Roger.
The NASA operations manager now conveying to his team that they are looking at possibly a 24-hour turnaround.
Go ahead, flight.
Yeah, CST-100's on ground power.
Roger.
Of course, there'll be a lot of data to look at, but
and flight LC.
LC, go ahead.
Yeah, just looking for your estimate for prop system securing, to support pad entry.
Need 5 more minutes.
Roger. Thank you.
Everything you're hearing now is about getting the crew, which is the primary focus at this moment by the launch team, out of the spacecraft and back on the ground. So configuring the crew access arm, it's locked in. They continue to do the operations which are in their schedule for a launch scrub, moving through those methodically. The report out that we heard by the CGLS was that at the time of the scrub, when the hold was listed, it didn't appear to load into the proper configuration. ULA will work to try to understand the cause behind that. They don't know that at this time. They'll be studying the data. NASA's commercial crew team will be right there with them, helping and assisting throughout this process. So we can see on the views here inside Hangar AE that they have the crew access arm back locked into the Starliner. You can see that on your screen there. essentially the team now working. Just to recap, if you're just joining us at 12:21 p.m. Eastern Time, T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds until liftoff. A hold was given by the ULA launch team, an automatic hold that was issued by the ground launch sequencer, the computer that takes over terminal count. The reason for that hold is not known at this time. The focus now by the launch team is to make sure the rocket is in a good and safe configuration. That's many of the calls that you're hearing out. And also that they, once it is safe enough, that they get the crew of Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, have them exit the spacecraft, come back down the elevators, and head back to crew quarters. I want to bring in United Launch Alliance commentator Dylan Rice.
System stable.
Pneumatic.
And yeah, Daryl, the team continues to work through the process to establish a stable configuration so that we can start pulling the crew off of the Starliner capsule. Still no update yet in terms of what caused the ground launch sequencer abort, but just like loading the crew, we establish a safe and stable configuration with the launch vehicle before we begin the egress process, and the configurations are very, very close to the same actually. We'll be maintaining the propellant systems in a topping mode and not changing the state of the Atlas or Centaur as we go through the approximate 1 hour process of egressing Butch and Suni from the Starliner capsule. But teams are continuing to evaluate the data and look into the cause of the ground launch sequencer abort. In the meantime, we will start to see indications that the team is re-entering the pad, and in fact the direction was just given to allow the blue team back into the pad. So we will start to see that activity now, and teams come back into the pad, back up the tower, and begin the process of opening up Starliner and egressing Butch and Suni.
Yeah, so that's a good sign there. You mentioned with the blue team coming back to the pad, they are the ones that will pull the crew out of Starliner. We heard that the pad area is cleared for them to come in. It's a good sign. Dylan, what's your time estimation on the team going through the rest of their procedures to make sure that the crew can go ahead and get up the elevator?
Actually, I think that we're there. So it's been just about 20 minutes since the hold was called. And in that 20 minutes time, we've established those configurations. In fact, we don't even let the pad team come back through the fence line until those safe and stable configurations have been established. So, once the team will of course be standing by at the fallback area, and they were contacted via radio and told to proceed back to the gate, and they will proceed through the gate and right back up to the crew access tower and on up to level 12, where they can begin configuring the white room. So. We are there at this point in terms of being ready to redeploy the environmental seal, which kind of encloses the Starliner door into the white room, and then we'll begin opening up Starliner so that we can egress Butch and Suni.
Yeah, we can see from this shot here that environmental seal is not on. Of course, this is the configuration right before you move the crew access arm either away or back to the capsule. So you can see the open air between the white room and the crew capsule. That will take the blue team, of course, getting up to the white room to put that environmental seal in place, which they are on the way. I'm monitoring some of the camera feeds. They haven't arrived yet, but they are on their way, as we've heard from the loops. Dylan, just give us an idea of the role the ground launch sequencer plays in the final 10 minutes of terminal count.
So essentially, the launch sequencer is performing all the actions that are occurring during the terminal count. So you will hear our operators provide status of the terminal count, but those operators are not actually performing manual actions. They're just reporting on the actions of the ground launch sequencer. So for instance, the vehicle propellant tanks will transition from a topping mode into a pressurization mode as they are pressurized to their flight pressure. Once the tanks are pressurized, we'll start to configure the avionics systems as well for launch, and ultimately hand over to from the ground computer to the flight computer, which handles the actual final seconds of the countdown prior to liftoff. But again, the ground launch sequencer is securing propellant topping. It's beginning the process of pressurizing the vehicle for flight. It will be transitioning the vehicle from the ground electrical systems to the onboard batteries, and enabling the ordnance systems, ultimately leading to the engine ignition sequence once the control has been handed over from the ground computer over to the flight computers.
And you've mentioned just some of the things that GLS does, right? It is a very busy computer in the final 10 minutes, as you mentioned, going through all of these very timely, high-energy systems that are being configured at in the last minutes before liftoff. To recap, if you're just joining us, the mission, the NASA Boeing's crew flight test of the Boeing Starliner was scrubbed at 12:21 p.m. Eastern Time when a hold was issued by the ground launch sequencer for the Atlas V rocket. It was at T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds, just a little less than 4 minutes before liftoff when that abort was called. The crew of Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, who are inside the capsule at the top of this rocket, as you can see here, are safe and are awaiting. There you see a shot of them. There's Suni on the left and Butch on the right. They are awaiting the arrival of the blue team to come out to the launch pad and help them egress, which essentially means get out of the Starliner capsule and head back to crew quarters. It's a process that requires that team to do some manual work to lock in the crew access arm to the Starliner capsule. And so they will wait for those moments to arrive. And if we've got Lauren Brennicke on, our PAO with the Boeing team. Okay, we just heard a call that the blue team is entering the pad, and I can see them on the closed circuit television. They are in their van, as you can see there, the shot there, arriving back. This is the team that will head back up the launch tower and up into the white room. They will secure the crew access arm to Boeing Starliner, open up the hatch, and get the astronauts out. Just prior to this, 20, 30 minutes or so, we've been listening to the ULA team safe the Atlas V vehicle, basically going through a number of steps to make sure that the tanks for the liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, the RP-1 propellant, make sure everything is in a safe configuration before they allow this crew to get on the pad. And you see the van there with the 321 backing up to the launch tower. Lauren, I want to ask you about, you've spent a lot of time studying the procedures for Starliner. Talk a little bit about the egress and this process that we're getting ready to undergo.
Yeah, Daryl, a lot of what they'll be doing is really what we've watched during this countdown, just in reverse. I'm listening on some of the side channels to the teams talking about going through their checklist, and this is something that we've practiced many, many times in the simulator, and the teams follow along during those sims where a scrub is often the case in some of the different sim scenarios they put together. And so they will go through this checklist that they know very well, where they will go through the everything that it takes to basically get the spacecraft back in the shape that it needs to be in so that we can turn around and do this again and go for it again. Of course, we have launch windows tomorrow, as well as the 5th and the 6th. We don't yet know how quickly the turnaround would be for this, if it's something we can get back in order for tomorrow, or if we need to wait until the 5th or 6th. But Butch and Suni are veteran astronauts who are very used to the world of scrubs. During the last scrub, we even talked about how Suni says that sometimes the scrub just knocks the pressure off a little bit, and they're used to it. So if you've heard Butch's voice on the loops in the last 20 minutes or so, you can tell that his spirits still seem high. Of course, it's disappointing, but it is part of the business, and the ultimate goal is just to make sure that our precious cargo, Butch and Suni, are safe.
Absolutely. Well said, Lauren. And there you see the blue team at the base of the launch tower, getting ready to head up the elevator to make their way to the crew access arm and then into the white room. We did hear, of course, they wouldn't be there if this weren't the case, but Starliner is also safed. We talked about the rocket, the Atlas V, and the procedures they had to go through to make sure it was safe for people to go back to the pad and to pull the crew out. Starliner, as you know, was also safed. And they are headed in the elevator, getting ready to go up. Dylan, you're a launch conductor, and so you've done a number of launches. In situations like this, there can be a 24-hour recycle. We don't know if that's going to be the case yet. But tell me about what's involved when ULA recycles a launch 24 hours later.
Well, Daryl, that's true, and even in a situation like this where we're still working through the details of the issue that caused the hold, by default we're going to set ourselves up to come back at our next earliest opportunity, which is tomorrow. So our default position is going to be setting up for that 24-hour turnaround. And there are a number of things that go into that coordination. The first of which would be immediately coordinating with the Space Launch Delta 45, our Eastern Range partner, to let them know that we are intending to utilize that day, which actually has already been scheduled as a backup launch day. So we'll be coordinating that with their teams, and all the support that we get from the SLD 45. And additionally, we'll be working to establish our systems on Launchpad 41 in a state that is ready for another launch attempt tomorrow. So even though we do still have some work to do this afternoon, which will include detanking Atlas and Centaur, at the end of the day, probably approximately 4 hours from now, we'll have the vehicle fully detanked, and we'll have the systems turned around and ready for another countdown opportunity tomorrow. So that could take a little bit longer if the anomaly team comes up with some troubleshooting steps that we need to run through, but have not heard anything like that just yet. For now, I think our team is still looking at data, but we're going to proceed as if we're going to make an attempt tomorrow until such time as we learn that wouldn't be possible. But for now, we are proceeding for a launch attempt tomorrow.
Yeah, the great point about the launch attempt is already there and available tomorrow if the NASA, ULA, and Boeing teams decide to take it. It's worth noting that T0 is already set for June 2nd, and it's 12:03 and roughly 07 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. Again, 12:03:05 p.m. Eastern Time, as you're looking at the blue team configuring the crew access arm around the Starliner capsule, where inside astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams are inside awaiting to be egressed or pulled out of the capsule. You can see the tethers that the blue team are attached to for safety reasons. They're 212 feet up in the air on level 12, and you see they've got make sure their tethers are attached well as they work to bring that environmental seal down. We'll see them doing that.
And Daryl, in situations like this, we have the rocket here on Launchpad 41, and that does get most of our attention, but it's easy to sometimes lose track of the fact that we do really have a large network of assets that support missions like this. So for instance, we've heard from the Houston team, so we've got the folks in Houston that will be taking actions as well. We have support from the TDRS satellite network, and we'll be coordinating that for support for tomorrow. So it really is a large team that supports these missions that is beyond the launch site and beyond what you can see, as the rocket lifts off the pad that supports all these missions. And so it does. There's a little bit of effort that goes into coordinating all those assets and making sure that everyone is ready for a launch attempt the following day.
Absolutely, Dylan. The number of teams involved, as you mentioned, Space Force, just one of them with responsibility for the range. Of course, your team, United Launch Alliance, with a great effort there with the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket, Boeing with the Starliner spacecraft, NASA with the Commercial Crew Program, and the engineers and managers who oversee that program to make sure that America has access to one of its most cherished resources, orbiting laboratory 250 miles above the surface of the Earth, the International Space Station, where astronauts there were hoping to get an arrival 24 hours later of this particular capsule. But as Suni Williams has said at more than a couple of meetings that I've listened to, there's nothing magical about this time or date to launch. You want to launch when everything is ready, and that is not today, but the teams will study whether or not that opportunity is tomorrow. As you can see there now, the blue team one member on his stomach, making sure to seal up that environmental enclosure there in the white room. And Lauren, taking this hatch off is a process as well. We saw them secure it, and now they're getting ready to remove it.
Yep, exactly. Like I said earlier, really it's just doing everything in reverse. And, you know, they had practice doing this just a little under a month ago. So they are going through those procedures right now. It's something they know very well. And it just takes a little bit of time to make sure that this is completely closed in. You know, it is obviously very important that we don't get anything from the outside into the spacecraft, keep that a very clean environment. So they'll have that sealed up here shortly, and then we'll start to see them open the hatch to Starliner.
One of the benefits, you know, one of the silver, because we can call it silver lining from the previous launch scrub, is that all the teams are able to take a moment now and study the data from what was essentially a wet dress that got down to just under 4 minutes. The launch team will do this. They'll look at the data. They'll study and see how everything responded. Starliner and the Boeing team will do the same thing. And of course, on the May 6th attempt, that's when they discovered the helium leak and then studied that issue for a number of days and came up with a plan to make sure that was accounted for should the Boeing Starliner go to the International Space Station and then need to deorbit. So in this situation, there will also be a benefit to looking at this data, Dylan, and I wonder, as a launch conductor, you've been involved in a number of those as well.
That's true, and you know, really, we're just going to keep the team focused on the tasks ahead of us, and you know, right now that is the most important thing. So we're focused on supporting the blue team, the team on the pad, as they get the white room configured and prepare to egress Suni and Butch, and then we'll move on to the next step, and we'll proceed methodically until we're you know, we have the vehicle detanked, and in parallel to that, the engineering teams will continue to pore over that data that we collected today and come up with a troubleshooting and plan for resolution, as we always do. Like you said, you know, even with a successful launch, there's an extensive data review that goes into every bit of data that was collected during that flight. And you know, days like today with the launch scrub is no different. So there's a lot of data collected, a lot of data to review, and we'll take advantage of that in order to put ourselves in the best position to continue with an opportunity at the next earliest opportunity when it's right to do so.
We just heard on the nets, I just heard our team here of commentators, Dylan Rice with United Launch Alliance, Lauren Brennicke with Boeing Starliner, and myself, Daryl Nell, here with NASA, that the white room is now configured to begin hatch open operations. Again, the white room is now configured for the team that you see in front of you to begin opening the hatch. If you're just joining us, we had a launch abort at T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Happened at 12:21 p.m. Eastern Time. We were counting down towards a 12:25 p.m. launch when the ground launch sequencer issued an abort command that stopped the launch of the Atlas V rocket and Boeing Starliner spacecraft. The reason that this ground computer called it is not known at this time, though ULA is looking at the data and studying that. Immediately afterwards, the ULA team began to what's called safe the rocket, essentially making sure that all of those high energy systems are put into a configuration that is safe for people to be out there on the pad and for the astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, to come out of the capsule and head back to astronaut crew quarters. It also signals a time where this team right here was able to re-enter what's called a blast danger area, or BDA, and that's the area around the pad, because when this rocket is fully tanked, should something happen to it, there's an area in which it is considered dangerous. That rocket has to be put into a safe configuration before they allowed the blue team to come on board. That took about 20 or 30 minutes, the ULA team working through their procedures and successfully so, as you can see now. And now we are just watching them as they work, providing you with the transparency on this operation. You're watching NASA's coverage of the scrub of the Boeing Starliner and Atlas V rocket launch scheduled for today at 12:25 p.m. Eastern Time. It was scrubbed just 4 minutes before. You're watching the blue team inside the White Room at Launch Complex 41 configure that space so that they can begin removing that hatch, where inside the Starliner you have astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams awaiting to egress or leave the spacecraft. ULA teams are studying an issue that popped up during the countdown. The ground launch sequencer issued an abort call, and the countdown was halted just 4 minutes before liftoff. Cause for that is unknown, but teams are discussing. Boeing's blue team now working on the hatch to the Starliner spacecraft. Got one of the panels open. We'll start working to loosen up the bolts, so to speak, and get the hatch opened up and get Suni and Butch on their way out. We've got Dylan Rice with us here. He is a launch conductor for ULA, not for this mission, but many other missions that ULA has launched. And he is our commentator for today with ULA. And as he has said in our coverage, our post-scrub coverage here, that teams are very much focused on the objective of getting Suni and Butch out. To recap for our audience, Dylan, we got this scrub at just under T-minus 4 minutes, a moment where the ground launch sequencer, the computer that orchestrates the final systems and operations in the terminal count, issued an abort. And kind of talk me through what you saw as we went through that sequence of events.
Sure, Daryl. So, as we heard, the computers did automatically generate a hold, and that's done when the computer detects a condition that it did not expect during terminal count. So the computer is really in control of the final 4 minutes of the countdown. Our operators verbalize the status of the terminal countdown as the computer runs its script and executes the final steps to launch the rocket. But the computer is really monitoring thousands of parameters and executing commands very, very quickly. And so we still don't have any good clear word yet on what caused this particular hold. But these kinds of holds occur when a command goes out and the computer cannot verify the proper response to a command. And so don't really have any indication yet as to which system that the issue may have been associated with. We just know that it was a computer-controlled hold that was initiated. And so our team immediately went into the securing steps to establish a a safe, stable configuration for the vehicle. And we're going to maintain that configuration until we get Butch and Suni out of Starliner, at which point we'll begin detanking the rocket once we have the blue team and the Starliner crew clear of Launch Complex 41.
And Dylan, we're another step closer to getting the crew out of the capsule. As you can see here, the hatch is now open as they begin putting in basically the equipment necessary to safely egress them or have them come out of the capsule, carefully so. Appreciate the recap there. You mentioned the launch date early on. We don't know when the next launch date will be, but what we do know is we have a backup attempt on Sunday, tomorrow, June 2nd at 12:03 p.m. Eastern Time. That's available if the teams are able to recycle 24 hours and get back out to the pad. That hasn't been determined yet. I'm listening to the nets now as the Capcom talks to the crew inside, giving them updates essentially to what's happening outside the capsule.
Yeah, Daryl, and one other thing that I'll add is that we have our primary launch control team, which is executing our countdown procedures in the launch control center, as was visible on some of the cameras, and that team is really focused on maintaining the configuration of the vehicle. We do have a separate engineering team that is going to be poring over the data that we collected in order to assess the issue that caused the scrub, and that way that data evaluation does not in any way take away from the focus of our launch team in maintaining a proper and safe configuration of the rocket and of Launch Complex 41 while we have people out there. So it's two separate teams that are kind of dividing and conquering what we have ahead of us today with the scrub, and we'll continue to maintain that posture with the one team maintaining control of the vehicle, and that'll be the same team that handles the detanking while the other team begins that data evaluation and works through the cause of the hold we had today.
That's a great point, Dylan. It is, I think you can liken it to the same posture that the systems engineers who are sitting on console, responsible for the various numerous systems that allow a rocket to launch into space. It's just like we're in a countdown, about T-minus or L-minus 1 hour out, very much focused on their consoles, watching the data, making sure that this rocket, which is still very much a live rocket at this point, is behaving and the data is coming back that is all nominal and safe while this operation happens. So I don't think it can be understated the focus that ULA is putting on that at this moment in time. But again, as you said, a separate team studying the data because time is of the essence. So reviewing that data to understand what happened with the ground launch sequencer and whether or not that's something that can be remedied in the next 24 hours. I want to just recap briefly what Suni Williams said during a recent flight readiness review, which seems applicable here. She said that spaceflight is complicated. Every step of the way we're realizing this. It makes us rethink how we do business. She said we have a capable spacecraft and we have people that can find solutions. We expect to find things that'll help us make the spacecraft safer to fly and the launch vehicle. These launch dates are not magical. They are an opportunity to do our job, she went on to say, and that her and Butch are armed and ready to handle any contingencies. She said there will be more issues and we'll be ready to handle them. How else can we be ready to do our job? That's astronaut Suni Williams, who you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, is getting ready to come out of the spacecraft. All right, we're going to send it back to the host desk now with Megan, Mike, and Dee.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daryl, Dylan, and Lauren for providing commentary about the hold that was called around T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds to launch. We here at the host desk, obviously, visibly and audibly disappointed. And Mike, I just wanted to ask you again, you know Butch and Suni so well, you know, what might be going through their minds right now?
Well, of course, this is emotionally disappointing. And I know that you know, Butch and Suni didn't sound disappointed when we heard them on the loops, and it's because you know, again, it comes back to professionalism. I think everybody on the working console is probably a little disappointed today, and that comes with flight tests, that comes with space flights. I remember back in the shuttle days, we would play this game, you know, of getting ready for launch, and then scrubbing, and then coming back and getting the mission done. And I think over time, we won't remember today as or May 6th so much, because we're going to have a great launch in our future. So I know, you know, there's some disappointment there, but like we mentioned before, it's the team is focused on getting the launch vehicle, you know, the rocket safed, so that the crew could come out, and that the spacecraft itself, the prop system, was safed, and that everything is good, so that everybody can come out safely, and then they'll work with the 24-hour turn that ULA is good at, so to see if they can find when the next launch opportunity is. But
yeah,
we're going to continue being professional and safe and looking at what's in front of us.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. You know, it's okay to be disappointed. It's perfectly understandable, but at the same time, you could absolutely hear the professionalism and how quickly folks are responding to this and moving forward to the next opportunity. Dee, what are your thoughts, again, from Boeing's perspective as we wait for Butch and Suni to come out of the Starliner spacecraft?
You know, of course, I think it echoes what we've all heard. You know, this is disappointing. We really wanted to see a liftoff today, but, you know, a reminder today, even during this attempt, you know, it takes dozens, if not hundreds of things to go right for us to get to T-minus 0. You know, that wasn't today, but the good news is we get to try again. So, you know, teams, I'm sure at this point, are focused on the scrubbing sequence and the, you know, all the things we have to do to try again tomorrow or whenever that date may be. So we're focused and, you know, just going through the process as simulations, you know, a process we have gone through many simulations until, again, we get to try to do this again.
Looks like Suni is out of the spacecraft, and she's going to put some protective boot covers on her shoes, and they'll take her some items from her put it back in her helmet bag, and it looks like Butch is about to be heading out also. They're going to go back to crew quarters at this time and get ready to do it again when the time is right.
And you were there when they returned to crew quarters on May 6th after the first launch attempt. Can you talk to us about their demeanor then?
Yes, they were. You could tell that they had had a long day, but they actually had a little bit of a smile on their face, which I was. I don't say I was surprised, but I was like glad to see. It made me feel a little bit better about things too, because you know, they do bring the whole team with them, and they've had a great attitude during the whole long quarantine period. So hopefully this is a shorter round, and getting ready for the next time. And Dee, you said it right. You know, practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes us a lot better. And we learned a lot of good things about our rocket and our spacecraft today. So the next launch countdown should be that much more smoother, and we're that much more practiced, which is good because a Starliner 1's going to be coming, Starliner 2's going to be coming, Starliner 3's going to be coming, and all these lessons are good lessons to learn, and that's flight test for you.
Yeah, one thing that I remember Butch saying at one point was, you know, people might see setbacks and think that they're bad, right? But to him, he always thinks of them as steps forward.
And today, that's definitely a step. Today was definitely a step forward in that case. But we'll be ready for the next time, and you can see them right now. They obviously are looking good, and they're smiling a little bit and enjoying. Again, the pad crew is there to help them, and they're just is a really great team.
And I think a step forward is, I would think that Butch would say a step forward today is this was, again, another great rehearsal, you know what I mean? And whenever we do try to launch again, I can imagine that things will be faster and smoother and more choreographed and rehearsed because they did have this opportunity today.
Yeah, for sure. The commander for Starliner 1, he was in the BMCC. It's Scott Tingle, and I know he and I and our crewmate Josh Kutrick, who was Capcom, we all got a lot out of today. So again, this is just all helping the next missions be even that much better. And yeah, you can see Butch is having a nice chat. They're going to get ready to go down the elevator and back to the crew van and back to crew quarters.
Yeah, he does seem like he's in good spirits. Again, like you said, chatting with the pad team members who just helped him and Suni get out of the spacecraft. So that pad team had left the pad, obviously, and in those final moments, it was just Butch and Suni before that hold call at T-minus 3 hours and, 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And so right after that call, as we heard from Daryl and Dylan and Lauren, they safed the vehicle, made sure it was in a safe configuration for the pad team to return to the launch pad and to begin the procedures to open up the side hatch there so that Butch...
Vamos,